Hello and welcome back to Deprogrammed Episode 8 with Alanna Starr Shimel. And welcome, Alanna. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Radha. To everyone else, I'm Alanna Starr Shimel. I'm a Certified Clinical Hypnotherapist. I teach and study all things esoteric with hidden wisdom. So far as to call myself a scholar of these types of things, like Sophianic scholar. Philosophical. I'm a reader, researcher, and I'm also a dance teacher. And so I use all these things as healing modalities to share, wisdom with other people.
So important.
Never to push it on them, but I'm a keeper of the wisdom, as you are too. So we all share it in different ways. So doing these shows is just one way that we get to engage in our wisdom and what we know.
Absolutely. We have fun deprogramming. Today we're going to be talking about initiation. What is initiation? How important is initiation into the spiritual mysteries and breaking the seal of silence? So take it away, Alanna.
Yeah, so we're going to be discussing the levels of initiation. What is initiation? And speaking of what it is, we're talking about the spiritual initiation, right? How we go up in levels with our wisdom and understanding. And if you have to be initiated by a secret society, or if that can be something that's done within you. And so that's what I mean by levels of initiation. I want to discuss what the differences are, and from the dark and to the light, and how it relates to the divine. And, is one type of initiation more important or more powerful? And in the times that we're living in, how important it is to be initiated and understand where you are in your level of initiation. And also, can you understand when something is an initiation, right? How can you recognize when you are having an initiation with your own level of divinity? Does that make sense?
Well, it's so beautiful. Yeah. I mean, we have initiation in our society in many ways, through religion, through school, academy, just different levels of initiation, different kinds of initiation. And then we have a more organic kind of initiation where we're connecting back with the priestesses or the goddesses or nature. And there's so many different kinds of initiation. Some initiation we get inducted to, is what I like to say, where we didn't have a choice in the matter. And other times it is something that we are consenting to. So
right.
It's important to know the difference. And then also discussing, if you've been initiated in a way that you didn't like, can you deactivate that or break that code, break that, initiation, or transcend it, what I mean?
To redeem yourself in a sense. Right?
Yes, absolutely. So where should we start? This is such a big topic. It's like, whoa,
it's hard. I'm also I want to listen to you. So I'm trying to lock in things that want to come in so I can listen fully, so I can answer it properly, So so where do we start? I think it's important to, talk about the fact that, is it a right to know, or is it something that you have to, when they say you're being initiated into a secret society or initiated into the realm of mysteries, what is the difference between somebody who's searching to find this and they are deserving of this initiation versus someone who is initiated at a young age because of the sect that they're born into? And how can we discover if someone is ready for initiation? Because these are things that you will hear in high level initiated beings that are in orders such as the High Kabbalah, or there's so many different high levels of different mysterious occult societies, right? they will argue that they don't share this wisdom because people are not ready for it. They're not worthy of it. They're not deserving of it, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so that has been my argument for so long. Well, if you know this wisdom and you're saying it's because we're not worthy enough, don't you think it's your job to teach us, not to hoard it for a special group? So the hoarding comes because there is magic involved, and it's an abuse of power and abuse of nature, abuse of the mother aspect of God. So many abuses that stops the average person from really knowing what they're missing. Yeah. So until someone embarks on that journey to understand that they're being initiated, you know, because it might take you years, because I think from my research, we're supposed to be naturally initiated on our own through connecting with nature. But because we're blocked off from that, depending where you're living and your own repressions and depressions, wherever you are, it might stop that process. So, yeah, you know, no, I guess it's just all part of it.
It is part of it. I mean, so I can speak from my experience and also from some of my clients with confidentiality. I'll give you a few examples. My process through initiation has been both in the light and the dark. And it would be from, you know, when I was a little girl, maybe 3 years old, I was initiated, well, first by my Starr family, who made their presence known. But then when I went to the Philippines, in the Cordillera Mountains, I was initiated with the mountain people, the whole nature, and connecting with that totally activated and awakened me to something that, although I had been initiated in other things that sort of put the kind of covers over my eyes for a long time, I was always able, that first initiation led me back to that time in my life where I could always go back to that over and over again. So some initiations that are really organic based are powerful and unforgettable, and they anchor us into, they sort of keep anchoring us back into the timeline we want to be on, because there are some dark beings and entities that want to initiate us into timelines we cannot get out of. So in a way, the purpose behind, let's just say this way, there are benevolent initiations and there are malevolent initiations. The malevolent initiations come because you have a certain energy, a certain soul essence that they want. And they also don't want you going on your timeline. They want to deter you from that, so you will be steered really off of your soul mission, right? I did touch on that in my book about certain dark initiations I went through, and it was not consensual. It was not something I said yes to consciously. Maybe on a soul level I did to understand it, but those imprints put me on a very different path, than I was supposed to go on. But I was brought back to my timeline because of my first initiation. And I'm being a little bit vague here. You can feel free to ask more detailed questions or anything if you'd like,
Right.
Or just continue, because there are so many different kinds of initiation, and you have to understand we are currently going through ascension initiation, which is basically we are ascending, therefore we are being activated from within. We are getting initiations through particular series of events, circumstances, astrology in our life that activate different parts of us. We are being initiated back to our highest self. At least that's where we are meant to go. And there are ways that initiations that can pull you back down to darkness, and darkness is not necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes from malevolent forces, you have to understand that there are some, sectors, factors, beings that want to feed off of your light, your particular essence, your energy. And so their initiation is only to plug you into their particular matrix so they can use you as food control you, mind control you, and it's not for your highest and best good. I mean, we all have soul lessons, but you don't want to get stuck on that forever, you know?
Mm-hmm. This brings us back to all the other shows that we've done, the mother wounds, the transhuman agenda, deprogramming in general, because like you said, it drags you back down. And as you were speaking, I was reminded to touch base on the idea of bringing something down versus ascending your way up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could bring heaven down and bring that to your life, but if you're also being dragged down, you not only are like, you're being dragged into the tree of death. They call this the klipoth. They call this the klipoth in Kabbalah, because it's the lower tree of life. And in that lower tree of life, it has its own emanation. So we have the emanations on the tree of life, which is the light, the emanation of light, and the virtues, versus the lower tree of life that has all those entities and beings that are the malevolent forces, the shadow aspect of humanity. When we are not paying attention, those behavior patterns, where they come from this shadow aspect. The death culture, there's initiations into the death culture, and there's initiations into light. It goes back to those other, ideas of deprogramming the mind from this matrix that we're living in. And so when we do understand that lower tree of life, we also can understand and see how most people, I don't think they fully have a grasp of who the true divine heavenly parents are. And because I think that what we're living in is what they call Satan's kingdom. And it would be, because it would make sense why things are the way they are here. Because I think that understanding when you have initiations is because you're breaking the real way of getting initiated on your own versus some secret society is that you have stood test the trial and error, and every time you fall down and get dragged into the klipoth, into the shadow, you pull yourself out, you do the work. That's why it's called the work of alchemy, right? Because you're doing the spiritual work. And so the divine is watching you, and your soul, your higher spirit, what you're connecting to as you initiate yourself, you're getting closer into that, the higher depths of understanding that angelic hierarchy. Because here on this plane, you have to do the work, especially if you're in LA. You might have initiations in nature, like you went up to nature and you're like, oh my God, I'm so connected, because LA is like you drive, because this is where a place where many people are not, are not really highly initiated. And so
or they might be initiated in LA, but in sort of society that tells you what to do, how to dress, how to be, it can, you have to really stand in your light. You have to stand in your light.
Right. And that's the thing, is that it's not built for you to get your light here, really. It's
no.
And so that's why you have to do the work. And that's where initiation comes from, really, right? Because I think that we're learning to mirror maybe the heavens, because there's this as above, so below thing always going on. And it says that we were created in the image. So it's like we are the image. And so we know that the idea of Satanism, like they always kind of mimic God. They mimic the creator, right? So it's always trying to mimic. So we have to find our way out and find the real deal, the real thing.
You have to get, you have to get authentic. So, I mean, there are some good things. Like the dark will always lead us back to the light.
Through the shadow.
Yeah, through the shadow. But the thing is, we must do the shadow work. We must face our own shadow, our own darkness, and really be okay with it. Like really face it, integrate it, not just face it, but integrate it. When we integrate our own, we don't need to mimic the other darkness, we don't have to, like, the programs start to disintegrate when you do your own shadow work, because it is the dark controlling, the malevolent forces. They want to have control over you. So until you do your own shadow work, you'll always, you could be a victim for a very long time. And I don't think we're victims. I think everything is here to show us that we are empowered, that we are the light. And we also have the darkness within us. Therefore, we don't have to play out these big patterns. I don't think we need to do that anymore. If we all take responsibility, and the darkness has been a great teacher. The dark initiations that I went through were traumatizing, and they pulled me far off the spectrum of my divinity where I came from, and really shifted my mindset to reset it to a place that was far from who I was, as a child. But going through that whole process and playing that part out, the programming out, has been the greatest teacher for me. I learned so much about the false goddess program, the false goddess program that's running. And it helped me really come back to the divine true goddess. So everything will lead you back to the light if you use it. But
do you think that the true goddess has separation within her? Because I feel like the false goddess maybe have taught us how to separate from one another based on beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And the true mother loves all of her children, right?
Yeah, all of
them. So
it.
I think it has a lot to do with having that divine spark lit in you, and that divine potential that everyone has right to have.
Yes,
right?
Everyone has a divine spark. Everyone has a divine spark. We've all been given a gift, and we have to utilize it. And you cannot just be lazy. You must know this life is a precious gift, and therefore every effort you make is worthy of you ascending to a new level of yourself. We're never competing with anyone else. We're only focusing on being the best version that we can be. And, the false goddess program is about lack. And I mean, it's a very dark program. And it's actually, the false goddess program runs pretty high in LA, I would say.
Right.
It's a harsh program. Your youth is your value, your beauty, like everything based on just your outer appearance, but you have no value on the inside. So that program pushed me to go way deep down into myself and to unravel. So I through that process, I got initiated with the goddesses, and that's how I created goddess activations, because I was calling out to the divine. I knew I was in a sinking ship. This false goddess program was killing me. The people.
Do you think your unawareness of the true goddess was one reason why you think it was killing you?
Oh, absolutely.
So my question for you is, do you think that the reason why we're having such huge mistakes being made in humanity over these last couple 100 years, I mean, not 100 years, but like the last, I don't even know how many years, because I can't even throw a number out, but like the mistakes that are happening, maybe they're because of all this occult wisdom being hidden because of our not being able to understand it.
That's a control tactic.
So do you think that if we had more access to that, things would be different? Or what do you think?
I mean, this timeline we're on was written in the Kali Yuga cycle. So we were on a timeline that was very high and descended very low, because it's up to us to go back, to bring it back up. When we were in the high aspect, the goddess was the pinnacle. Through the downfall, we descended, the fall, the fall of the divine.
Can we talk about the garden? Because I remember we mentioned that before, and I said I wanted to talk about the wisdom of the earth and that being the garden. And so when you said from the fall from grace into the shadow, which is underneath that is the klipat, which is the lower tree of life, which is those shadow aspects that we have to get through here.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about the garden, because I just want to hear what you have to say on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, we had the fall. I'm just replacing this. So just you continue, because I'm just going to plug this in real quick.
Yes, so the closed garden. So the closed garden. We have these talks of the Christ and the bride of the earth. The bride being the earth, and so if we are understand the wisdom of the earth, that is our own connection that we have to the divine. I'm talking about the bride of that bride being the earth and Christ. The Christ and the bride of Christ. Thinking that is the goddess, which is the earth, because it's considered to be a planet. So it's Terra, Gaia, Sophia. Like it is a living entity, and so we are part of that, and so it's correcting itself. And so since we fell in, we were in a garden, and then we fell from that grace into the shadows, and so we have to find our way out of it. I think that Christ planted these seeds before, and there was initiates that walked the earth that knew this wisdom and understood it, and understood they had divinity with birds, they had divinity with nature, we were one with nature. Things were so very different, and so I think we played cycles out in timelines, and we've all done this before.
Yes.
And so the fall, let's get back to that before you're gonna move what I think you're talking about, the fall and the garden, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the fall was gosh, I mean, it's such a big piece of it. We talked about Lilith last time too, how the Garden of Eden, and then the first wife was Lilith, the first partner was Lilith, and that she basically was like, I didn't come from your rib, I'm an equal, I came here just like you did. And she was tossed aside. The fall was actually the fall of the feminine is what I would go so far to say. And the darkness that's been infiltrating has used feminine womb power. That's why they use a lot of sex. That's why they access the womb energy, and they suck it, pull it for creation. But they will not give the feminine the credit. They want outside the feminine to be weak, to be nothing, to be useless. On the behind the closed doors, they use all that feminine power as occult magic to create illusion everywhere. And our whole society is based on this illusion. And it is up to us to wake up. We have to wake up to see past it. The feminine is reclaiming her own divinity, her own womb power. We're not willing to give that away like that. You know what I mean? It's a collective consciousness womb energy. Everything about this society has been inverted. So everything that was it's just been inverted and so it's been twisted and turned around. And where it was once the matriarchy, it became the patriarchy. So we're really trying to find the balance. We're realizing if we continue on this path, we're all doomed, because the patriarchy will bring us into wars, into reckless behavior, resources being trashed, used, abused, land, people, no regard for life, no regard for anything of value. Devaluing is really a big part of that initiation process, devaluing and making other people devalue each other. So we are being initiated back into the divine. And in the process, it's painful. We're waking up, and it seems when you start to see things as they are, you can get shocked. You can go through a cathartic change. You can go through the dark night of your soul, because once the blinders are off, it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't see that before. So when we can start seeing what we couldn't see before, it's a gift. It's not a curse, and the world is not getting any worse than it's ever been. I mean, this is the pinnacle, the spiral that we're going down so that we can start to see things. Sometimes we have to see the darkness so that we can say, no, we need more light. you know? We have to see it. It helps wake people up. And so the initiation process, no matter what people have been through, they can recover. They can start to recover. I've worked with a lot of families, children from families of the elite all over the world. And they come to me very upset about the initiations they had to go through. It was not an option not to go through them. They were initiated into these occult families, elite families, and a lot of it has to do with incest, abuse, giving your child away to others for more power. I mean, it's really heavy duty stuff. And, some of my clients were saying like they couldn't, no matter how far they went from their family, the cords were there. Their family was vampiring off of them, vampiric. So the initiations were only to serve them and to basically be a juicer, be a battery for them, So she was always tired and weak. And I uncourted her. I did energetic divorce with her parents and these people. And she was crying with joy because her whole life she had been trapped. And so that was an initiation back to her divinity, her reclaiming her own power. Despite all of the initiations and abuse, you can claim back your soul fragments. You can call back pieces of yourself. There are many ways you can come back to your own divinity. And that is the initiation process of coming back to the divine, which we all have within us, which we all can access. It's not just some of us. And that's a myth to think that it's just some of us, but some of us just work at it more than others. That's the only difference. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's an investment of time and energy and thought and effort. And it takes work. Like anything good in life, you have to work at it. So I'm grateful I've got to help people initiate them out of the confines that they were in. And everything has its polarity, positive and negative. So they had to, basically rescind all the vows, because they make them make so many vows, oaths, and commitments to loyalty, to this, to all kinds of stuff.
They feel they can never get out of it after that.
No matter what, never can get out of it. So once we went through all of the vows and everything, pulled all the cords, she cried. She told me she could sleep for the first time. She could breathe. She was so thin and so frail. And, she said this has been happening since she was a little girl. And this is also for boys, for men. These things have to stop. They're not okay anymore. I don't think we need to learn those harsh lessons anymore. It's just.
Well, that's what brings me back to the purpose of bringing up initiation to begin with, is that I think that we're in the times where it's important that it's not about someone forcing some religious view on you or something. Mm-hmm. We're talking about true divine order here. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that people don't know that they have this celestial body, mm-hmm. and they have a spiritual body, and they have a physical body, and they exist on multiple dimensions. Mm-hmm. And so we're healing this gap between as above, so below. Mm-hmm. And I think the initiation process, beginning to understand and purify your mind and your body to attract the Holy Spirit, mm-hmm. which is, I believe, the wisdom of the earth, the mother. And so the initiation that's important right now is that people begin to, understand this stuff more. Mm-hmm. Because all parts must be accounted for.
Oh, all parts will be accounted for.
Every part, yeah. And so every part, even the ones who just not even close to getting there, everyone deserves to know this. And so my question is, like, how do we I don't want to like bombard people with it. So actually I keep very quiet considering the amount of stuff that is inside of me. Like I almost don't know how to present it, but I know that it's my job to present these things, and that we all that are doing this work have such an intricate part to share, because there's going to be a point where people are going to come searching for someone to help them understand. And so, you know, it does say for those who have eyes to see and those who have ears to hear, let them hear. But it's like, I mean, I guess it's all going to happen the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. I mean, this is why we do this show, because this is my intention. This is why I didn't take a sponsor or anything like that, because I wanted to be able to have the freedom to talk about anything and everything that is important. What we are talking about is important. And, you know, there's not much interest right now, just to be honest, like with, you know, this stuff, but there will be, like you said, you know, so it's just a matter of time. As people are awakening and they're looking for more answers, they will eventually find it, you know? So I put it out there and I just let it be. And it's like, whoever wants to find it can find it. And whoever doesn't have to. It's not for everybody. You know, these conversations are not for everybody. They're for people who are starting to awaken, to get initiated back into their own divinity after perhaps.
And I think too that, speaking of, today's a new moon in Aquarius. You're right. And so it's also that age of Aquarius where the wisdom is pouring through right now. That pitcher of water is pouring through, that the waters of life is coming through. And we're breaking, this is the age of breaking bondage. The bond age, it's over. It's really over. And I'm here, that's my intention too, to wake up my brothers and sisters, you know, to really help them redeem themselves no matter what you've done. We can't let the shadow control things anymore. And you mentioned Lilith, because we keep coming back to this Lilith, and it's for an important reason, because she is, so on the tree of life and the Kabbalah, on the lower tree of life, we have the emanations, right? And the bottom pillar of the tree of life is called Malkut. And that represents the earth kingdom, which is where we are, right? Okay, this is depicting it in those emanations of light from the Kabbalah. We're Malkut. And then right underneath that is a shadow aspect of that tree. And so the lower realm of the Malkut is actually with Lilith. Each one has an entity or demon-ish type of being that runs that emanation.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Lilith, and I just researched it, I just learned this recently, but I've come back to her many times, and because she is the counterpart of Satan. That's the counterpart of what we're dealing with here, the feminine aspect of why it's been suppressed. So even though it is a repression of the divine feminine, it also comes from a feminine aspect that also represses its own kind, because it's inverted and perverted and twisted. So we're not only dealing with the patriarchal, we're also dealing with the dark mother.
That's true. That's
the dark aspect, who actually created the dark goddess, or the, you know, false goddess, because only a feminine aspect could really create that. You know, I hear many great teachers that are men that have great insight on the divine feminine, but they don't mention anything about a woman the whole time. They're always some rabbi this, some that. And that's how I know they're still missing the point. But there's one particularly that I've came across recently that really can break down the Lilith aspect and how that's really taking place. You know, those sexual magical rites, all these things, these rituals, that is a feminine thing. You know, that is something to really understand. And to be initiated in that, people still want to get out, and then they get highly initiated and understanding their own freedom that's not related to anything dark or that's suppressing. Because our truths are what we're coming into, is that sovereignty, and all of us, you know, kind of learning the truth.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot there. We can talk about Lilith in another show, but
yeah, I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah. So the dark mother is part of it. I mean, I always relate the dark mother as the distortion when there was, for me, like I go back to the witch hunts. when women were
I
turning,
wrote that down too.
yeah, when they were turning, they were like, report a witch near you, you know, and sometimes by turning in another woman, it would save your butt, because then you were not a witch if you turned in a witch, you know. We were programmed to go against each other to save our lives.
Right.
And this is where the dark side of sisterhood comes in, where we are initiated into hatred towards each other. You know, it's like my life or yours. I'm going to take you and turn you in, you know. We get trained to not stand by each other, but to betray each other. And those kind of cycles continue to breed itself, because that once the wounding of the feminine betrayal occurs, it creates a hatred inside. You know, you hate yourself for doing it, you hate them, and that feminine wound. And that's, I mean, I experienced that hatred from the feminine from a very early age, from a caregiver, you know, my stepmom, who didn't like me, and her mother hated her. You know, they were Jewish, and they had that in their lineage, and it came down to me.
I'm familiar with that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was something that was, and it's a dark spell in a way, you know. It's an initiation into self-hatred.
So yeah, because it's the process of initiation is a process of death and rebirth, and either you can keep dying until these entities have everything from you, selling your soul, or versus you're rebirthing yourself to realize you're born again. That's that whole like Christ like coming through for you, awakening to that death and rebirth cycle, which is actually also how we learn to get off the reincarnation wheel. So we can really become ascended masters while we're alive and not dead.
That's so important, to get off the reincarnation wheel. So you want to deactivate a lot of, or transcend a lot of the dark initiations, which we all get inducted to, you know, early on, many of us. And then there are different forms of, you know, initiations, darkness, and mind control that can continue, you know, into much deeper, darker levels. But on a very base level, pretty much everyone gets that from an early age. You know, once you start to go to school, once you start to watch TV, once you start to just get you know, indoctrinated into the system, it is directly initiated into this culture, right?
Absolutely. And you mentioned the Salem the witch trials and the Spanish Inquisition, and I believe that these are people who had spiritual initiations on their own, and they didn't like that. There always has to be some type of like, you know, group that's like, they don't want the personal experiences, I think. I mean, I'm not really sure. I wasn't there, but from what I'm understanding, it makes a lot of sense, you know.
You can control a herd, you know, a herd of sheep if you keep them all together, rounded up. When one goes on its own, it's very hard to control. I mean, when I was in a certain cult for a while, I was a goat herder amongst many other jobs, and the goats would basically congregate. So they were very smart. You know, they're hard to herd. You want to get them all together, but they would come together, and then they would all split off. Like they would come, and it would be funny. They'd just go, poof, and they'd all split off in like all these different directions, like a starburst. And it was really hard to control. So, you know, who wouldn't want a group to just stay together? They're easier. You can move them along right to where you need them to go. When they start to go off and have their spontaneous awakenings or initiations on their own, you can't control them. They're uncontrollable. And for, you know, the malevolent forces, that's not a good thing. So
yeah, it makes sense. You know, I think we're living in the time where like we're all coming together, and I think that it's important to really ask yourself, you know, as we get closer to the end of this, that the end of this conversation today, is that like, is this stuff really hidden, or we just can't see? You know, so that's a good question to ask yourself. Is this something hidden from you, or can you not see it? Because what is it that you're looking for? Because that's important. You can receive initiations, but it's your true faith, your true being. Like, it's either looking for the best, or it's looking to create more separation, more division, more aggression. And so it's like, what do you do with your initiation? Because I think that the mother, when I say the mother, it's like nature, consciousness, it knows you already. And it's all about, you know, it's going to give you that power. It's going to give you that ability to create. It's going to give you the ability because it loves you unconditionally. But it's like, what are you going to do with that? Which is the important thing in the initiation. You know, I can't hear you, Rada.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not sure how we got muted.
Oh gosh, that's interesting.
Well, maybe we should. Hi. Do you want to
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, you know, maybe this is a good time to wrap it up here. And I just want to say thank you so much, Alanna, for coming on. You know, it's time for people to start taking responsibility too, and start to open your eyes to see things as they are, not just the way that you've been trained to see them. You know, just like the natives, they couldn't see the ships coming in when Columbus came because they were not trained to see ships. So in their eyes, they didn't know what it was. They couldn't see it. Until we have conscious awareness, we won't be able to see things. You know, there are some things that are so out in the open, it's ridiculous. And there are some things that are so hidden that it's ridiculous. But it takes an inquisitive mind that really cares and wants to know more. This is your life. This is your life. And you should know how precious it is, how divine it is. And you have the right to become as divine and to activate your divinity within, to initiate into your highest potential. No longer is it time to hide out and to play small, to play these silly little games. The more that we awaken, the more that we can create the shift that is meant to be here. So we have a right to be here. We have a right to awaken. And thank you so much, Alanna, for bringing forth these wonderful subjects and, you know, inquiries.
Thank you so much for always being open and willing to share in the conversation, you know, because I discover stuff, and then I really look forward to like having someone to communicate them to and to share wisdom with, especially someone who's doing, you know, so much herself. So thank you, and I always look forward to more conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, you guys. We appreciate you, and we're sending so
much
blessings.